Oh, boldness, be my friend. Words of William Shakespeare. And William Shakespeare's words there seem to apply to what we're going to be looking at today. Welcome back to the channel, everybody. Obviously, we have something that many people have been waiting for all over the world, and it's just arriving in the stores and on people's doorsteps. It's the Kotare, which I believe is the correct pronunciation. Kotare Spitfire. This is the Mk.1a mid-production version of the Spitfire, used in the Battle of Britain, of course. And I say boldness be my friend from Shakespeare. Well, that's kind of a good motto for these guys at Kotare, isn't it? So we don't know, they haven't disclosed, obviously, for lots of reasons, I'm sure, exactly what happened with Wingnut Wings, and we're never going to know, probably don't need to know, I suppose. But Wingnut Wings are gone. But these guys, Kotare, are rising like a phoenix from the ashes of the Wingnut Wings company. Several of them were senior employees at Wingnut Wings. Richard Alexander is one of them. I've met him, amongst a number of others. And they have decided to boldly go, that's not Shakespeare obviously, forward with a new project. And obviously they want to bring a lot of the special things that Wingnut Wings meant to people and take it forward with a completely new range of kits. And this is their very first one. Now I have to say, I don't know if that's just my opinion, but the artwork actually it's not the most inspiring. Now, just before I get into this, first of all, a couple of things. I've still got a cough, I better warn people, but it's not the same cough, and you don't need to hear my medical problems. They're not really medical problems at all. I was actually pretty much almost recovered from this virus that I suffered from recently, which I had to cough and splutter my way through a recent video, which one or two people didn't like, and I understand that. Fully agree. But this is something completely different, self-inflicted. You will all be waiting eagerly, I'm sure, to see the Sea Harrier from Kinetic rant review, after build review, which is coming. It's coming. But I've not been able to film that for a few days, and the reason is that when I finished the last day of production on the Harrier, finishing the kit, again, because of Kinetic's issues with the way they designed the kit, there was a lot of parts that you really had to use super glue. You couldn't use conventional styrene cement, and I am very allergic to it. In fact, I was using the Tamiya one, which I did have here. Here it is. The Tamiya one, this one, which is really good glue. I'm not knocking it at all, but it's not odourless, and I am very allergic to this stuff, I've got to say. There you go. So if you're not allergic to it, it's absolutely brilliant. I can highly recommend it. It sticks stuff, really bonds things well, very quickly. In fact, I nearly bonded my fingers together. I've never done that, not for many years anyway. But anyway, I have this allergy to it, and it basically gives me hay fever symptoms, and I started streaming the day after. It always takes 24 hours of the day. I started streaming, and this is just as after I've recovered from this virus. And I knew what it was, because I smelled it. I thought, well, I'll probably regret this, and I used quite a lot of it. Things like the weapons and stores and undercarriage, they all had to be super glued. So I'm afraid that I've been suffering with this streaming, like it's like hay fever basically, and a bit of a cough again is fired up, but it's not. It's going away. It's actually much better. It's not as bad as last time, so don't worry too much. And on that note, I just want to, before we get into the new model here, a bit of a serious one today. I was obviously the new video I haven't shot yet because I haven't been well enough really. It's going to be a bit of a comedy show. It's the only way to handle what is such a fairly bad kit actually. In many respects anyway, it's bad. So there'll be some champagne. I need to celebrate. I've spent an entire year working on that. Not an entire year, isn't it, every day, but it took a year from start to finish, exactly to the day. And I'm going to be having some champagne and some fun. Today we have a slightly more serious subject because this is quite an important kit, a complete breakthrough really. And I also wanted to mention, I've just mentioned about my health. Well, my health it's fine, to be honest. It's just minor stuff. But one of our good friends of the channel isn't too well at the moment, and it's actually someone with another YouTube channel, our good friend Jason from Model Kit Stuff. And I tuned into his show, and I've not been getting the alerts for some reason. And people keep complaining they're not getting my notifications for my upcoming vids. Something's going wrong at YouTube. Anyway, I did see his video, but I saw it about 2 days late, and he was saying that he's not too well. I'm not going to go into the details. You can go over to his channel. I'll probably put a link in, and you can check him out. But yeah, Jason's a really nice guy, brilliant modeler, very talented guy. And if you've been watching any of his recent work on this Wingnut Wings the growth of the UWD, the seaplane. He's doing a beautiful job of it, you know. But he's got some serious health issues, and he's not too well at all. So I'm just hoping he wasn't very optimistic when he was talking the other day. So I was a bit concerned about him. I think we all are. So I just want to say before we get into this review, Jason, if you're watching, I hope you are. It might just be interesting for you to watch and lift your spirits a bit. We're all thinking about you, mate. Buddy, get well soon. We're really fingers crossed for you because, yeah, it's not good. And yeah, let's hope the docs can sort you out. We'll keep fingers crossed that you're going to be feeling better soon. I hope so. And I'm sure everybody will join me with that sentiment. Okay, enough of health updates. So let's have a look at this remarkable new product then. Now, I was just going to say, first of all, that this is not my product, my property I should say. Been loaned to us very kindly and very quickly, I have to say, by Clive, or 9 Bolts as it's sometimes called. And Clive is, I think he's got more than one of these, in fact. I think he's going to build one and maybe keep one, but he's very kindly loaned me this, so I'm going to get it back to him as quickly as I can. I've got to be very nice to it. But he says he's going to build this actual one so I can open the bags, which is really very special. So that's fantastic, Clive. Thank you so much. And Clive helped me with the Harrier. We'll talk more about that in the Harrier video. But yeah, that's twice he's really helped me out. And this is a kit that I, like him, pre-ordered and paid the earth for. I got mine refunded. I changed my mind. I did lose out a few pounds, but overall I did okay out of it. But he supported Kotare, and he kept his very expensive pre-order. And it was, when I say expensive, it wasn't Kotare's fault. This was an exchange rate issue because he was dealing directly with New Zealand as I was. Anyway, don't go into the details. But so he's really supporting this company, and I think that has to be applauded as well. So thanks very much, Clive. Really appreciate it. I don't intend to build it, you see, so I decided I'd cancel mine. So I wouldn't have got to see it, and I really wanted to review it and see it and touch it and let you get the benefit. So without further ado, I was just going to make one comment, just one tiny negative. Clive has actually given me the artwork because it comes with a print, and he's going to keep the other one, I think, which is really kind of him. Thank you very much indeed. But putting that aside, it's not the most inspiring artwork, I have to say, in the way that some of the Wingnut Wings was. It's nice. It's nice. It's a nice. And you can see it's on canvas. Let me zoom you in. You can make that out better. But it's not the most sharp, inspiring, and sort of dynamic artwork I've ever seen for this type of kit. I was a little surprised. It was a bit low key in a way. But it is nice. The only thing I would say as well about the box is, and if you're listening, Kotare, here's a tip for you. There's one thing this box needs that would have lifted it quite a lot, and maybe would made the artwork lift a bit as well, and that is the silver blocked foil around the outside that Wingnut Wings used to do. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to copy them at all, but that would have just... It's a bit dark and a bit dour, I think, the way that they presented it. And I think it could have been a bit more... You know, we don't want it to be Hollywood, but a little bit more uplifting, you know. I think that silver foil around the outside would have just given it that punch and a bit more shelf appeal, because it's a bit low-key. But anyway, let's get a proper look at it. First of all, on the side, I'm going to be reading a bit for you now. And I haven't opened this, I haven't looked at it, so please bear with me. This is completely new to me as it is to you. So it says, the legendary Spitfire Mk.1 is undoubtedly one of the world's most famous aircraft of all time. This was in no small part due to its performance during the Battle of Britain from July to October in 1940, where, despite that being less numerous than the similarly powered and armed Hawker Hurricane Mk.1, it proved to be the aircraft that captured the imagination of the public. Excuse me. Designed it from 1934 under the guidance of the Supermarine chief designer Reginald J. Mitchell, Joseph Smith and Alfred Alf Paddy, the prototype Spitfire flew for the first time on the 5th of March 1936, and production aircraft entered the RAF service in May 1938. Early production of Spitfire Mk.1 was completed between May 1938 and September 1939, the K and L serial numbers, and were powered by a 1030 brake horsepower Rolls-Royce Merlin 2 engine, and initially featured a 2-bladed fixed-pitch propeller, an unarmoured windscreen, and a tail untapered aerial post. Numerous improvements were introduced throughout production, including a 3-blade pitched Howland propeller, taller canopy hood for improved visibility, armoured windscreen glass, plating on the over the upper fuel tank, and a reflector gun sight. Mid-production Spitfire, this one, was completed between September 39 and April 1940 N and P serial numbers, as included in this model kit. So they saw production of an improved cockpit door catch, tapered aerial post, a voltage regulator positioned behind the pilot's headrest, and on selected aircraft a constant speed Rotol propeller with a TR-1133 VHF radio. Late production Spitfire Mk.1a's completed between May 40 and January 42 featured an engine-driven hydraulic undercarriage retraction system, a composite plastic seat, constant speed de Havilland propeller, and saw the incremental introduction of armour plating behind the pilot's seat and headrest, which was retrofitted to earlier aircraft. Fireproof bulkhead and revised radio access door and instrument board, and station keeping lights in the fuselage while eliminating the front parachute flare tube. The 1038 Breakoff Spitfire Mk.1a was gradually supplanted by the 1135 Spitfire Mk.2 in late September 1940 onwards, with the remaining Spitfire Mk.1s being relegated to the training units from the middle of 1941. Spitfire continued to be improved and production did not end until 1948. Isn't that remarkable? It was going for 10 years. That's incredible, isn't it? By which time 22,000 Spitfires had been produced in 24 variants, with almost the most notable being the Mk.1 seen here, also the Mk.9, the Mk.14, Photo Reconnaissance Mk.11 and the Navalised Seafire Mk.3. And here we have the three options that come with the kit. KLB, which is probably the most famous Kiwi pilot of them all, Al Deer, who fought in the Battle of Britain. He was with 54 Squadron. We've then got Dirty Dick Robert R. Hardy, 234 Squadron, August 1940. And then another very famous one, the DWK, which is the 610 or County of Chester Squadron, they're known as. There's a fact I knew, because I've got a book about them. And that was J. Ellis and P. Litchfield both flew that aircraft. So there we go. So that's the background. In terms of the rest of the actual box, you get the artwork on the end, and they actually name this kit the K32001, product number 1 from Kotare. So there we go. And you've just got some general blurb in different languages. So without further ado, let's get into it and have a proper look at something which we hope might, you've seen me talking about Wingnut Wings recently, been very popular videos, by the way, the Wingnut Wings one and the Andy's Hobby Headquarter Tiger tank, both very popular videos, my most popular for a year or so. We're hoping that this is going to bring a bit of that Wingnut Wings quality that we all badly need, especially, we're going to talk about bad kits in another video, but let's have a look and see what these guys can produce for us. I'm going to pop that over there in the background. Oh, well, because if I do that, it'll interfere with the focus. So, here we go. I'm told that there's, I think it's 156 parts. Plastic parts 117. Okay. Not as many as I thought. Not that many sprues. Okay. Less than I imagined. I have to confess, I did see these sprues at the Telford Scale Model World, so I am familiar with the look of some of the parts, but let's have a look what it says here. Zoom you in, and we have a nice, already promising looking start with the instructions, where it looks like we're going to get some proper data. Okay. It's going to go into a lot of detail. I'm not going to read all that because I think it'll just take too long and it'll bore you. But basically, it's breaking down in a lot more detail than what we saw on that data on the side of the box. Excuse me. Then we have helpfully got some other technical data: the wingspan, the length, maximum weight, maximum speed, 350 miles an hour. Not bad for 1940, is it? Number manufactured was 1556 of the Mk.1, that is. And then the other details: maximum ceiling 33,000 feet, 303 or 7.7mm Browning machine guns, and of course these were produced at Southampton, West Bromwich, and I'm sure there was a couple of other satellite factories that also built Spitfires, but those are the main ones, I think. So let's have a look at this. So what I'm going to have to do, I'm going to have to put those to one side because there won't be enough room. You'll have noticed that It's all right. I haven't stopped being patriotic. My flags from the USA and the UK are still here, folks. But I put this here because it's going to give us a better. I think it's particularly important we saw these parts clearly and sharply. So didn't want distractions for the camera. So we should get a better result as a result of that, if you like. Okay, so let's get on with it. So we have already got a very Wingnut Wings looking style to these instructions, where we've got basic data here. Then we've got all the colours that you need, and it's great that it starts off as Tamiya, which a lot of them have not been doing, I've noticed recently. So I'm very pleased that Kotare have taken that on board. And then we've got FSBS. Is that Mr. Colour they're talking about there? I'm not sure who they're referring to there. I've probably been a bit ignorant. So Federal Standard, okay, yeah. Federal Standard numbers, the actual paint codes. And then we've got obviously what you would kind of again see in a Wingnut Wings kit. We've got the sprue trees and the decals, which we'll look at in a minute. And here we go. It starts with the cockpit. So we've got. I'm going to try and bring you in. I'm going to do my best to give you as good a view as I can here. Hopefully without too many reflections. So obviously you're building up your instrument panel, and already we've got a photograph. So this is a great move, isn't it, compared to the other kits of today that we seem to be having to suffer the most awful instructions. And we've got to talk about the reflector gun sight and the compasses there, and then it's advising you that basically this is a paint guide. It's paint guide and the decal guide. So I think we've got decals for the instruments. Shows checking. Yes, they're all here. We'll come to that in a second. So we've got decals for the instrument dials, and then we're going to build the cockpit floor, the heel boards, and then the rudder bar control tubes, rudder pedals, and then we've got the control column going in, and again very Wingnut Wings looking, isn't it? Pilot's seat. I think it hasn't shown us so far. No, it's okay. It will show you the colours as well as we get into it. So we've got pilot's seat, again, the recommended colours there. Looks like we've got moulded in seat belts, so that probably means you don't need any photo etch. That's got to be good. And then we've got the seat going in, obviously with a little bit of armour plate behind, and it's got recommendations for the different colours for the armour plating. And then obviously you're building up this quite a confined cockpit in the Spitfire Mk.1. It's not a big space at all. It's quite snug, I think is the expression. Now, one slight disappointment, I noticed this at Telford, that you do have to drill out the holes that are in the bulkheads in the framework that goes around the spars, as it were. And I'm a little bit disappointed that they couldn't have got, why they couldn't have done that at 32nd scale. This is the same, I think Tamiya's was the same, so it's not really any different, but maybe it's difficult to machine it with very small holes, but I thought they'd do that for you. Then we have got some more holes, so you've got another similar situation here, got some more holes that need to be drilled. Again, a little bit frustrating that those can't be achieved in the moulding process. I would have thought that they could be, but anyway. And then you've got these other frames that go. I'm using the wrong word, aren't I? What is the word I'm looking for? It's not bulkhead because it's not a wall, is it? Anyway, I know what I mean. It'll come to me later. And then we've got the you've got this flare shoots that was later dropped apparently, weren't they? You mentioned that. And then you got your harness. It shows exactly how it fixes, and I like the way they're doing this. There's a lot of rigging here, and here we go. Now, one criticism that people have made of Wingnut Wings, and I think it applies here as well. Somebody made this criticism last week, and on the Wingnut Wings Albatross video I did recently, and I thought it was a fair criticism, something I hadn't thought of. And he said, "Why can't they provide the rigging? Yeah, because we've got to go and source rigging, and it's such a high quality kit. It's the one thing that's kind of missing." Now, I suppose it's because people have different preferences about the style of rigging that they want to have, and what they're going to use, and what works for them. Maybe it's that, but anyway. Now you can see the colours, and this is where we're getting some really nice images. we've got the colours here, so you can see basically what it should look like, and the full cockpit now coming together. We've also got a nice one here with a mid-production photograph. 234 Squadron Spitfire, which is N3277, just after capture. Oh, must have come down over the channel. Compared the appearance of the relatively clean front bottom cowling with a heavily stained oil tank behind. Oh yeah, it looks like it's been replaced. And the undersides of the main planes were repainted in Sky Mix at 234 Squadron. The wheels, wheel well struts and insides of the undercarriage doors remained in their factory night and white finish. So this is when they had the split white and dark underside, which I never really understood, white and night. I don't know how that was supposed to work or what the thinking behind it was. It's always looked very, very odd to me, that colour scheme. But anyway, which I'm sure we'll see at the end. I'm just going to flick forward so you know what I'm babbling on about. I'm talking about that. Yeah, how does that work then? Yeah, a very, very strange concept, wasn't it? Anyway, we won't dwell on that. So, we've got the final parts, like your compass going in here, and there's another decal for the top of the compass, painting your floor, and then you've got this, and this is one of the things that I think is going to be quite incredible about the kit, is that it's got huge amounts of detail that's moulded in, a bit like the Lancaster was going to be, and of course ended up as border, where there's a lot of detail already moulded into the kit, rather than having to be added with, you know, photo etch and all this other stuff later on and separate parts. So this is one of the reasons that the part count is quite low, as we'll see later. And then you've got your oxygen supply going in there, you've got your oxygen tanks. Cockpit completed. Okay, so now we've got the starboard interior of the fuselage. Excuse me. Remove spare filaments for the reflector sight. Spare filaments, okay. Undercarriage hand pump, the manual pump to get the undercarriage down, and then these flip up. Having completed it with all the paintwork, they then go either side and sandwich around the sides of the actual cockpit, and then you've got a very detailed cockpit indeed. And we've got some more lovely photographs here. So, mid-production Spitfire, completed in October 39, initially served with 54 Squadron between 18th November and the 18th of December, transferred to 611 Squadron, where it's seen here in January 1940. Note the aluminium painted inside of the cockpit area, behind the frame, undercarriage hydraulic reservoir, various shades of dark green paint used. Gosh, in black and white, okay. You say so. And then another one here, second photo, mid-production 610 Spitfire, and it's saying here, that's photographed in July, right in the middle of the battle. Thickness of the yellow ring around the fuselage, this is a very thick one, isn't it? Sky Type S, mixed patchily repainted around the main planes. Okay. And was quite susceptible to discoloration when wiping around the gun port openings. Okay. Now the trolley accumulator in the foreground. Yeah. Basically has the battery on it, doesn't it? Charging system. Fuselage interior, we've got the wireless door. Oops, got that. A wireless door. And then we've got a bit more rigging to do. There's quite a bit of rigging in this. It's almost like World War I style. We've got the prop shaft. And this is when we're going to come to the kind of elephant in the room with this kit. Thing that disappointed me, and perhaps a factor in me cancelling that order, was just the fact that it has no engine. And I kind of think that that was a mistake, because already I feel they're doing a brilliant job here. I do. But I think that that was a choice they made, and given this is retailing for about £100 in the UK, thereabouts, at the sensible price, not the price that Clive and I were paying, I just feel that £100, I mean, now it doesn't sound unreasonable, but this was always going to be about £100, I think, anyway. And I just feel that it sort of lets the package down. And I think that this is intended to be not too long a build. I think that's what they've gone for. This is why they've got these one-piece fuselage sides with everything moulded in. But I was disappointed it didn't have a Merlin engine. Just my opinion. You know. What do you think? What do you think? I thought that you know, the Tamiya offering is slightly more expensive. It's about 10% more expensive, but it has an engine. It's quite a nice one. So whether they just didn't want to do it because of production cost or simplicity or what it was, I don't know. It's a shame that they couldn't get their hands on the moulds for the Wingnut Wings. I was going to say the Spitfire engine, but they didn't do it. Sorry, I'm thinking about the Tamiya one. I'm rambling. But yeah, it's a shame they couldn't have produced the Merlin, that's all. But I guess that would have delayed it and made it a lot more expensive for them. Anyway, we'll move on. So we have a prop shaft here. And you forgive me, I'm just going to have a quick glass of water so we don't have any more coughing. So we have a prop shaft, no engine. And then we've got the engine starboard cowling goes on, as you can see. Hydraulic reservoir for the undercarriage hand pump there. And then you've got the various small parts like the IFF pip and squeak height and airspeed computer. Over here we've got now coming to the exterior of the fuselage. So we have got 1 or 2 holes to be drilled, including in the tail planes. You've got rigging material not supplied, as I mentioned earlier. I did warn you, didn't I? And then we've got the GM2 reflector gun sight. Not quite as good as the German one, in fairness, was it? The Revi gun sight was probably considered to be better at the time, but they did get a lot better during the war. And then you've got a door closed display option, door closed or door open. So that's obviously a choice you must make. And this is where they're clever though. Let's have a little closer look at this. So they've decided to go, we'll look at the parts obviously, but they've decided to go with these pre-moulded, kind of slide moulded style sections that then drop in on top to avoid a seam down the fuselage. This is good thinking, isn't it? This is exactly what we need from our kit manufacturers, to be thinking outside the box. We need them to be thinking as modellers, not just how cheaply can we manufacture something. Which of course is what I've complained about bitterly many times with other manufacturers. Just churning out plastic, thinking it's okay because it's an unusual subject, but doing it crudely. We've seen it with Revell, we've certainly seen it with Kinetic. We've seen it with even people like Border and Great Wall Hobby, in fairness. But this is very Tamiya thinking, isn't it? It's a bit like Tamiya did with the wheels on the Mosquito, or the cockpit front on the Tomcat, things like that, trying to avoid seams and trying to avoid bad joints and things like that. So let's have a closer look. We're going to put our top cowling on here, on top of our non-existent Merlin, and then we're going to put the tail planes and the elevators in here. Note the hinge cutouts, subtle rib stitching and the lack of scalloping on the tightly roped fabric coloured fuselage. Very tightly done, unlike things like the Hurricane where it was more obvious. And then we've got we're going to work on the wing now, but put in a spar, and then we're going to put in the guns, which are these like little stubs for the gun barrels, which are going to go in. Then you're building up your undercarriage wheel well. They're going in there. And then you got the Browning gun barrels outer, so you need an inner and an outer. That's quite interesting, isn't it? Yeah. You do the inner there, and then the outer here. And then we've got the top wing coming in. And you can see the stretched fabric detail on the ailerons. And then we've got these fillets. Now these are very realistic, of course, because this is exactly how the real aircraft was produced, with a fillet just like that. So that's very scale-like, it has to be said. These aero fillets were a way of cleaning up the aerodynamics and having a simple join between the wing and the actual fuselage. New Zealander, yeah, another Kiwi, RJ Jack Hyde stands beside a mid-production 66 Squadron Spitfire, probably N3049 or 3041, believed to be taken in January 1940. Goes into a lot of detail here about production on. Note the wireless remote contractor IFF pip and squeak, which it points out, A21, and the initial height of the voltage regulator, which is A18, which is there on the door. and then the undercarriage hand pump, which is D19. Then over here we're going over to the radiators, the oil cooler and radiator, and of course it's very separate and obvious on the Spitfire. So we have a big oil cooler is just this very slender, like a tube style on the Mk.1 Spit, and they changed it later on to make it like a bigger radiator so it matched. I think it must have caused some strange aerodynamics underneath having this setup, because you've got one big radiator on one side and then this very slender aerodynamic tube on the other side, so it must have caused a bit of yaw issues. And of course they dropped it. Later Spitfires had twin radiators, so it was symmetrical. And then we're gonna, it talks here about the fairing detail. You've got the flap at the back of the radiator. I think you can have that in different positions. The wheel wells and radiator fairings have been painted Sky Type S at the factory. Rear view of the radiator here. Sorry. Rear view of the radiator and undercarriage of the mid-production 54 Squadron. Note the small brackets faintly visible in the open radiator flap. Well, they've kind of put their arrow over that, so it's quite hard to see. Anyway, factory painted night and white undercarriage. So one's black on one side and it's white on the other. And then we have got the appearance of basically the cowlings for the underneath the nose, the oil tank, and the bottom cowling goes in there. And then we've got some details for what looks like one flying over. Okay. Over the page, undercarriage detail, and another photograph of one with the night and white scheme, which still looks crazy to me, but anyway. And then you put in your undercarriage legs. If necessary, cut to improve the fit. It's a rather strange statement. Don't expect that. Expect it on kinetic. I'm sure that, I'm not sure what they mean there. I think it depends on perhaps it's to do with how you position the undercarriage or whatever, whether it's up or down. Anyway, you're putting in your doors, undercarriage doors, and then the actual legs and the wheels themselves, wheels and tyres. Drill out the holes here for more detail, and then it shows the angles, which is very helpful here. Something you don't get with kinetic, isn't it? Actually shows you what it should look like. Some very nice illustrations here, giving you an idea about what it looks like on a finished production Spitfire. Several photos there, and then there's one here showing the lightning holes that are drilled in the even put lightning holes to reduce the weight in the tail planes. That's interesting. And then we've got our de Havilland or Rotol option here, and of course the Rotol has the much more blunt type of spinner on it on the right, and the de Havilland is a bit more pointy looking. I like the de Havilland one on a Mk.1 Spit myself, because the Rotol one always reminds me of the Mk.2, which kind of was developed for, you know. And then we've got our radiator, our exhaust stubs going in here. Quick mention on this before I forget. Excuse me. Clive would want me to mention this to you. Those of us, not including me because I cancelled mine, but I include myself in this little club. We happy few, you know, who ordered this directly from Kotare like Clive did. Because there was this huge delay. I mean, this was supposed to come out in November, yeah? And here we are, it's April, so it's nearly 6 months later. The people that pre-ordered them, like Clive and I did, they've offered to give us some resin exhaust stubs, apparently. But they haven't come, unfortunately. There's been a bit of a delay, so Clive chased them, quite rightly so. And they've said, yeah, sorry, there's been a bit of a delay getting them out, but they're on the way to you. So whether Clive wants to pop those in the post and we'll have a quick look at them separately or not, or he can just post it on the Flory forum or something. But yeah, that sounds nice, doesn't it? But I've got a funny feeling that the standard exhausts on this kit are going to be okay anyway. But anyway, I just thought I'd mention that because Clive was quite proud that he'd got these nice new resin parts coming as well, which were sadly not available for review today. Anyway, you put in your aerial, putting in your exhaust stubs, putting in your rudder. Okay, now I understand why Clive was excited, because what I missed was this. Cut and drill out for more detail. Now that's a bit of a pain in the backside, isn't it? No wonder Clive's so keen to get his hands on these resin ones, which will obviously have those recesses at the exhaust tips cut out anyway, I'm sure. And then under here, there's a lovely photograph here of the exhaust stubs. And can I just say, before I go any further, as we're talking about exhaust stubs, this is exactly where our friends at both Tamiya and Airfix fell short, I'm afraid, with their Spitfires. On the 32nd scale, Tamiya and the Airfix at 24 scale, I was not impressed by the way they handle the actual parts and the way that they attach to the sprue. They went and the Mk.1a Spitfire has this. It has a seam that runs down the middle. It's a fishtail shaped exhaust, and it has a seam, a weld seam from the real aircraft runs down the middle. So what did Airfix do? They copied Tamiya and put their sprue attachment gate point right in the middle of this seam, which was just dumb. And I've seen Airfix's official, sorry, I'm not trying to bash Airfix, I'm not, but they made a mistake here. If you look at their official built kit, which I think Pramjit built very nicely, but he had the problem that anybody would have in that I understand one or two modelers have actually put the seam back in. Airfix didn't do that on their own. You know, they just seem to have missed the point here. They didn't understand that seam was supposed to be in there, and you don't go. But anyway, I know for a fact Kotare have avoided falling into this trap. So hats off to you guys in New Zealand for that. We'll see that in a minute. We'll have a good look and gloat at it. Yeah. And say, yes, congratulations, you have got it right. Anyway, sorry, back to the exhaust. So it's saying here that, a bit closer, it's saying here that, note the exhaust manifold, there's an outlet and the details from an unidentified 19 Squadron late production Spitfire 1A. The exhaust manifold was supplied by Rolls-Royce and were made from Inconel, an alloy that does not rust. Well, of course they use that today, don't they, quite a lot as well. Even after 4 decades under a Calais beach, well of course that would be the QV Spitfire which were rescued, wasn't it, from Calais on the beach. The same style of exhaust was used on a mid-production Mk.1, Mk.2a and B, early production Mk.5 and the Hawker Hurricane. Note the weld lines and the stencil markings. Oh, so that's got weld, and I hadn't seen that before. That's just exactly what I've been talking about. So even on the Mk.1, if you look carefully down the centre point, the centre line, there are weld lines. Let's go closer. Let's go really close so you know I'm not making all this stuff up. Can you see the line down the centre? Yes, it has a weld line. Yeah, and many modelers see that and think, you know, on kits, and think, oh no, that's that's basically a seam line. Sand it all off. Well, it shouldn't be sanded off because it's actually there on the real aircraft. It's a bit like on your 109s where it has that strange join line down the fuselage which is supposed to be there. Anyway, right, back to the zoom in. Just wanted to give you a lecture on exhaust, that's all. So here we go. I'm on the Canopy now. Be interested to see what that's like. So we have an open or a closed option with an open or closed door option obviously as well. This early version of course doesn't have the doesn't seem to have the bar, this crowbar which comes later on things like the Mk.9. And then we've got some aerial work we need to do, wireless aerial rigging, because Mk.9 doesn't have that of course. It has doesn't have any rigging across it, whereas the early one does. And then we've got stencil, then we start with the stencil. So you basically built your Spitfire at this point. And sorry, I forgot to show the detail there of the rigging on the aerial post. Can you see that? Get a bit closer. Excuse me. There we go. How about that? It's nice, isn't it? This is what they call the tapered aerial post. And then we're getting into the stencils. So yeah, lots of stencils on a Spitfire. Not that many, not that crazy of course, not like a Phantom or something. And then we go into our colour call out. So we've got Aldea's 54 Squadron plane, and some of you of a certain age will remember that the Aldea 54 Squadron plane is the one that was featured in the 24 scale Airfix Spitfire, the one that was built, came out in 1970. Many of us are familiar with that, and now that going back to what I said at the very beginning about artwork, I was a little bit underwhelmed by the artwork on this, but that had really great artwork and so unforgettable, you know, very vivid and colourful. and that was of course Roy Cross, I think, that did the artwork. But yes, so that was the same aircraft as this one here, with Aldir. So one of the famous Kiwis, a hero in the Battle of Britain. And it says here, again, the artwork is a bit, it's not just the picture on the front, it's a little bit wishy-washy, I think, the way they portrayed the art. A little bit overly pastely coloured, if you know what I mean, a bit pale looking. Yeah, I'm not sure why they've done that. Maybe the artist just needs to get a bit more colour in his printer or something. Anyway, here we go. Saying about the variations and the changes, the subtle changes that were made in the greens and the dark earth and the dark green. Night and white. So this is definitely night and white. So if you look underneath the wing, you can see it's night at the top. Port. Starboard, it's white. And then it's going to show you a little bit of detail here. Another nice photo, drawing your attention to things like the roundels. The early roundels, quite a small one. And that changed later. Again, on the Airfix one, which I think is picturing the same aircraft a month or two later. Much bigger roundel on the fuselage on that one. And it tells you about Aldir. It says he was born in December 1917 in Westport in New Zealand. And a few months later he was posted to 54 Squadron after joining the RAF in 1938. And he flew Gloucester Gladiators. And he had the Kiwi, the famous Kiwi of course, which leaves you in no doubt which country he's from. And again, famous from the Airfix kit. There it is, just under the windscreen. It basically says that credited with 2 victories. He was shot down and forced to land in a Belgian beach in May 1940 while supporting the evacuation of Dunkirk. Oh, hang on a second. So I'm now wondering if the Tom Hardy character in the Dunkirk movie was based on Aldir. It sounds like it was, doesn't it? I didn't know that. Okay, there you go. We've all learned something there. So go watch the Dunkirk movie and you'll know what we're talking about. Anyway, back to this. Yeah, and he was went on to command 602 Squadron from August 1941. Oh, he obviously got out then. So it's not quite the same story, is it? If he was in August 1941, he was commanding 602 Squadron. He clearly escaped from the beach, the Belgian beach. He must have got out with the evacuation forces. He'd be a priority guy to get out, wouldn't he? To be honest, because you need him, obviously. Oh, and here we go. The burnt out remains of Deer's aircraft, without further ado. And it was a souvenir postcard, 1940 French-German souvenir postcard. Note the oxygen bottle in the foreground and the style and position of the B. Oh yeah, the B. It is small, isn't it? A couple of sightseers are crudely edited out of the photo. Oh, a couple of sightseers have been crudely edited out of the photo. It was standing here. I remember this. I've seen the original somewhere. I have. And then there's more shots of it here, showing the rear fuselage. And the souvenir hunters are all over it, aren't they? Well, he must have just basically legged it up the beach and escaped with the British forces evacuated at Dunkirk. Then look at the rot. It says here. Look at the Rotal spinner. The Rotal is the more rounded style. It's been souvenired. The Rotal badge has been souvenired from the top of the spinner. Gosh. The burned out, ripped apart cockpit. The 48-gallon top main fuel tank is still visible. Remains of the 4-cell radiator core and the compressed air bottle in the foreground. So there you go. That's really quite a historic aircraft now. I didn't realise we were going to get that. And here we are. It's the Wingnut Wings style, isn't it? You know, it's giving us some proper historic data. What's stopping other manufacturers from doing this? I don't understand it. I'm very intolerant of it. This is brilliant. Yeah, that's what we want. Yeah, same again. We've got the second aircraft. And this time it's Richard Hardy. I said Robert Hardy. I was thinking of the actor. Richard Hardy. Was he a New Zealander as well? I've got a feeling he was, actually. Dirty Dick Hardy, they called him. And 2 fingers, oh look at that, 2 fingers up to the swastika. It's quite fun, isn't it? See that? So this is AZH, and this is quite a famous, very active squadron in the Battle of Britain. 234 Squadron. Bob Doe, I think, was in this same squadron. I think another ace from the Battle of Britain. Upper surface, blah 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 blah. Yeah, a bit of blurb there. He joined in 1939, and he was forced to land near Cherbourg, and he was captured. Unfortunately, he was Dirty Dick. Hardy spent the rest of the war in a POW camp and left the RAF in 1946, and he died in 1997. He was a bit unlucky, wasn't he? It says here, note the captured. This is the aircraft captured. Note the damaged fuselage and canopy hood. Yeah, it's really got damage, hasn't it, behind the canopy there? Can you see that? Looks like a cannon shell's hit it. Maybe anti-aircraft gun. Interesting. And there's more. There's more. Just after capture. View just after capture. Excuse me. Note the cordite and grease-stained underside gun. Yeah, you can see them like we often, we often do this, don't we? It even shows it in the artwork here. From the cordite stains from the gun ports. Look, you can see it on the actual aircraft there. So it's not unrealistic. The flaps are completely fully down. One last sign of defiance from the captured Hardy. Wow. Port side has been partially camouflaged by its captors. A poor but interesting print. Compare the appearance of the red, blue, yellow, dark earth and dark green in this photograph. Interesting. Very interesting. And then finally we've got the last scheme, which is Douglas Corfe. Whoops. Let's widen this back a bit. Douglas Corfe. So this is 610 County of Chester Squadron. And it said, oh yes, this is the plane that was actually flown by two different pilots, Douglas Corfe and John Armfield. He was forced to bail out and shot down as John Armfield in 18th of August 1940, then served as an instructor. Douglas Corfe joined in 36. He flew Hurricanes. And then he was transferred to 66 Squadron. He was shot down and killed over Malta on the 25th of April 1942 at just 23 years old. What a shame. Defending Malta. That's sad, isn't it? And then we've got one of the classic photographs here of the 610 County of Chester Squadron. From a very famous photograph, there's two together flying in echelon. And flown by S.J. Armfield. Wow. Picture of it at Hawkinge down in Kent. 29th of July. Talking about the changes in the roundels going to the thicker roundel. Well, that is amazing. Okay. Some great references. Great references, aren't they? This is what we want. Yeah, I don't want to just buy some piece of plastic and have to guess how I'm supposed to assemble it. I want to have a learning experience, a historic, a pleasurable. It's like reading a book, this, isn't it? It's like a reference book. Look at this, there's more here. Talking here about fastener alignment markings. Here we go. This is quite interesting. Fastener alignment markings that are marked on the aircraft. I'm talking about the fact it hasn't got the yellow ring at this stage. So that's the 5th of April. But that was already, they were already rapidly putting the yellow ring around, because I think in the distance they were hard to spot, and they were trying to identify friend or foe, and the yellow ring helped a lot. Whereas the Germans had a yellow nose. Here is the night and white, in this case the night wing, and it shows the trestle markings, talking about the famous stencil markings underneath, and it warns you to trestle it before. I'm trying to think the wording. What does it? Remove trestle before undercarriage. I can't remember it. We'll see it in a minute. But very, very impressive. And there we've got another one of those that hasn't got the another shot of the one without the the P9450 without its yellow roundel, and it's got the do not walk line, it's pointing those out to you. And then here ill-fitting panels which are characteristic of the hand-built nature of the Spitfire construction. You often noticed that especially the fuel tank cowling over the fuel tank just ahead of the canopy, it was quite a poor fit. You can see the gap there, very characteristic of the Spitfire. Some models misunderstand that as well and rub it down, smooth it off, which you don't want to be doing really, to be honest. Oh, sorry about that, sounds like my neighbours are having a bit of a mowing or something. Anyway, moving on. QVK, this is 19 Squadron. One of these also ended up on I think a beach, was it at Bologna? We can see here that we've got the guy looks like he's doing the armaments on the wing, and then you can see the rope, this one's been burnt out, crash landed, abandoned on the beach by DG Gribble on the 25th of May. Oh dear. Abandoned on the beach. Where was this at? Sounds like it's Dunkirk again, doesn't it? Really. Wingtip steadying trestles, that were the there we go. Location for wingtip steadying trestle, that was the marking I was trying to remember the wording of. It's stripped of its linen covering by souvenir hunters already. Wow, okay. My neighbour's got a very loud mower. Aldea, here he is. Complete with his Kiwi markings. And 12th of June 1940. Boom, 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 boom. Yeah, he flew it 32 times. Although it's not a very good print, it does show the extensive staining and weathering appearance on the top of the wing. Can we see that? Get a little bit closer perhaps. There we go. Very nice. Sorry about the noise, folks. There we go. And then finally it's just talking about the destroyed by bomb damage. Oh gosh, obviously got hit on the runway, because this was over at Hawkins, I think, wasn't it? My goodness. There will be a late production Spitfire Mk.1a in a later future kit set, it says. Wow, wow, there we go. Well, that's it, folks, in terms of the instructions. And here we have the guys who made it possible, and one or two faces and names we recognise. Certainly recognise Richard Alexander here, bottom right. Mark Robson, I think these are all Wingnut Wings guys. Darryl Legg, he did the box art. Not sure about that, Darryl. Have a look at your colours, dude. And there we are. I have to say, it's not a very complicated build. The only complicated part really is going to be this rigging that we've talked about. And I think that really will be the biggest challenge you'll have in it. Obviously you've got no engine to worry about. So let's have a look at the plastic, yeah? Sorry about the noise. Right, let's have a look. Now, I'm allowed to open these. Clive was very clear about this, please open it. So I'm going to try and do it in as sympathetic way as possible. And have a look at these decals, which I think are cartograph. Yes, they're printed in Italy, they're cartograph. So let's see if I can get this. Here we are. Let's say my neighbour's lawnmower is much louder than normal. I don't know if somebody's got a new mower, it does sound a bit like that. It really does. Oh yeah, we're in. Okay. That time of year when they can be mowing at all times of the day, isn't it? Right, oh, these look beautiful. Look at this, look at this. So here we go. Look at that. Oh wow. Those are nice, aren't they? There's definitely minimal carrier film there. Yeah. And some really bright, vivid looking roundels there, and you've got two different versions here, one with a yellow stripe round it, one without. You've got the Kiwi for Aldea there, which is nice. All of your KL markings. Here's the famous wingtip trestle stencil. And then you've got the Dirty Dick markings, AZH here. And then the 610 Squadron markings. Whoops, a bit too close there. 610 Squadron markings here. You've got a little decal for the Browning machine gun ports. Very nice indeed. And then you've got a lot of very fine decals. Can you see these? They're quite tricky to catch actually. These are very subtle little decals. I think those are going on the gun ports in fact. So there you go. And then of course down here you've got all your many instrumentation dials. That's nice. I mean, I've got a hunch with this kit, if I'm being completely honest with you. I stand to be proven wrong, but I did get the feeling, if you can live without the engine, that you're not going to need any aftermarket on this kit. I think they've designed it that way, that you're going to get a beautiful result straight from the box. So, yeah, I think that those look splendid, so I'm going to carefully put those away for Clive. Pop them safely in there. I don't want to get creased in any way. Stick that to one side. Now, the moment you've all been waiting for, the plastic, let's go. So, again, it's very important to be stressed. I must open it. That sounds like something's loose, is there? I can hear, yes, there is one part loose in here. What is that? It's the intake for the radiator under the chin. Oil cooler, I think, isn't it? Oh, it's gone, I've been quiet. Oh, now then. Well, let's have a look at the part that's roguely floating around then. Seems to have got a life of its own, this one. Let's have a look. Now then. I'll try and give you the best long shot image I can with these. I'm not going to rush. Now that does look very beautiful, doesn't it? Looks like it's slide moulded. It's got proper depth to it, see that? That's nice. Very nice. Okay, now let's get into the rest. Excuse me. Just lingering on my cough, isn't it? Determined not to miss the show. Right. Now, there aren't that many parts, so we're going to go in close and have a good long look at each section. Nice and slow, so you don't miss anything. So we've got lots of parts here for the cockpit. And then we've got these frames. Now this is where I was having a little bit of a moan. I was disappointed they couldn't, I mean, why couldn't they have actually produced those as a hollow? I don't know. Seems odd to me. Those look to me like they could have been drilled out as part of the mould. So I'm not sure why they couldn't manage it. You know, they've already started it. It's like they've gone to half depth. I mean, what you could do is just use some a wash on it, and you don't need to drill them out. You can make it look like they're hollow. You know, I think that might do the job. But look at this beautiful spinner. And again, we talked about Airfix and Tamiya not being very smart with their positioning of the sprue gate. But look at this. This is brilliant. That is exactly where a sprue gate should be, where you can't see them. Where you end up with a beautifully clean propeller without any cleanup required. You don't have to worry about it. Once you've cut that off the sprue, it's going to be covered up anyway. Just cut it off and go with it. Here you've got the, I think that is the de Havilland spinner, he says. Looking at the other parts quickly. Yes, in fact I'll go to that one next because that'll make more sense. Yeah, I'm right, that's the de Havilland. A slightly more pointy looking spinner, de Havilland prop. And again, look at this. Now you see what I'm talking about. If you go back and look at my review of the Spitfire from Airfix, you can now see everything that is wrong with the way they designed the sprue gate contact point. That's where it should be, where it's not going to be seen, not on the face. So, now they are in two halves, which are slightly disappointed about that. Clive won't mind because he's getting his resin ones. I'm just wondering if they've done that on purpose to create this, you know, to create the join. Well, because we know that there is, as discussed, there is that well seam line. So I think that's what they're cleverly doing. This is cleverer than what Airfix did, or Tamiya. They've thought it through far better than them. Then here we've got the wheel wells, and they're kind of moulded in one complete section. I like the way they've done that. That's clever. Looks like a slide molded piece, isn't it? We've got weight on wheels on the tyres. They look really nice, don't they? They have split them, which I'm not always very keen on, as you know from my Airfix review. But there we go. They are beautiful looking. I mean, look at the detail there. Aren't those beautiful looking wheels though? Fantastic. So that's the 5 spoke, isn't it? And people get mixed up between 5 spokes and 4 spokes. That can cause problems on Spitfires. You don't know what you are, which variant you're doing. So do be careful to make sure you get the right one. Then we've got our door covers, or gear door covers. Our radiator, which looks nice, doesn't it? It's nice and sharp, that. Yeah, that's really good. And these are the actual legs themselves. This is the one that said trim as appropriate. Slightly odd statement, but I'm sure that'll become clearer when you're building it. Got the armour plating upside down, turn the way around. We've got the armour plating there. And then you've got your, that's quite, they've got shown the rudder deflected, the rudder actuator bars. And then you've got your, this is all the bottom of the cockpit. Well, that's a very nice sprue, isn't it? And then this is your prop shaft. There's no engine to go with it. That is a lovely sprue. Lovely sprue. Not a bad start at all. So far, okay, I can sort of bitch on about the split undercarriage wheels tyres, but if they're a really, really good fit, which I've got a feeling they may be, we won't complain then. Second one, very appropriately, is the other. We've got some of the variants and things like this propeller. Put that back in there in that bag so we don't lose it. Clive, as you've been so helpful, I'm going to reseal these bags for you, and I'll do it in a very professional way. You won't notice they've been opened. They just make you feel like you again. Like that Madonna song, you know the one I mean. Touch for the very first time. Right, so what have we got here? We've got the nice Kotare nameplate here. See that? That's nice, isn't it? And then now we've got some clever stuff going on here. Okay, so you've got the seat, so it depends whether you want to put a pilot in there. I don't think they provide a pilot, by the way. That's one thing that is missing. But you've got with or without the belts. Those belts look pretty spectacular. Those are very, very thin. I'm going to touch this. We know what. Peter, be careful. It's okay, I haven't broken anything yet. But we know what my track record is like in this department, don't we? Little thin parts, yes. Clive is chewing his knuckles now, thinking, don't you dare. Don't you dare. No, I haven't done anything, but they are very thin, so be very wary when you're handling that seat and belt part. Look at it, it's very, very thin, gossamer thin. Beautifully done. Very scale-like, isn't it? Again, it's like the 132 Lancaster, so they've done that nicely. Here's your front bulkhead. And then, this is where we really get a bit special. Look at this. So this is now the sides of the cockpit wall. And they've done a bit like the Lancaster, which ended up as a border model, of course. It's all moulded in one. Isn't that fantastic? So they've gone for a, especially the side with the oxygen bottles on it, all done as a single process. So you've just got to be very wizard-like with your painting, but at least you haven't got lots of parts to glue in. It's all done for you. And then you've got your wireless door hatch. And we have got I'm just looking at the, sorry, zoom out a bit. I'm just looking at this cowling on the top of the engine. It's not quite as thin as it is on the Tamiya. They've gone for a much thicker, sturdier piece of plastic. But it doesn't need to be, does it? Because we haven't got an engine, so you're not going to take them off and display it with them off. So it doesn't need to be thin and scale-like at all. Doesn't matter. So they've, again, given the way they've decided to go, then that is a very logical thing to do. So then we've got this time it's the Rotol propeller. So this has got a slightly different blade style. And then we've got the rather blunter looking Rotol spinner, which was also on the Mark II Spitz. Then you've got your oil cooler cover cowling underneath. You've got your rudder pedals. And then we've got the instrument panel here. Trying to get the light on it, there we go. Nice relief, beautiful detail. Yeah, very well done that. And then we've got the sides of the seat mounting. That's really it, apart from those odd bits of like the crank handle for the manual undercarriage crank handle and various bits of the side of the cockpit. So, I have to say, there's no flaws or flash. They've gone and put these ejector pin spigots that they've attached a bit like Tamiya do, you know. Very sensibly done, beautifully done. So as I say, Clive, I'll be don't worry, I'll reseal your bags and I'll make them look like it's new again. You just see. I'm getting a dab hand at that now. So I can sell them. I could sell this one, couldn't I? Oh no, I'm just joking, Can't sell it. It's not my property to sell. Right, so now like this, they've given you, I mentioned about resealing for Clive. Yeah, because I can, because unlike, was it the A10, the Academy A10, they've got a bag that was like 1 millimetre of gap between the bag and the sprue, and you couldn't reseal them, it was a nightmare. So these, they've got lots of, 1.5 inches, 2 inches almost, of a free bag. Makes resealing it just a doddle, to be honest. No problem at all. Now then, look at this. Oh, yes. Let's have a look at that. Let's take it close. Like close. Over the top. Right, ailerons. Those are nice, aren't they? Are they one-piece aileron? Yes, they are. A one-piece aileron. It's not a top and bottom, it's only one piece. You can see the section, can you? Yes. You can see the section of it there. Aren't they beautiful, those wings though? Elliptical wing, gorgeous. Gorgeous. And you've got these lovely fillets, just like the real aircraft, exactly the same. You've got your radiator mounting here. And you've got your gun ports, nice open gun ports here. Not very, they're not completely open, which is a bit of a shame, but you know, you put some black in there, sorted, and it just looks like a void, doesn't it? Not an issue. And then on the other side you've got all this internal ribbing which enables the spar to go in, you know, to build it up. And then you've got this nice, which is visible of course, the top of the undercarriage bay in the wing. You can just make it out there where the bulge is, just to allow the angle, deflected angle of the actual undercarriage, which is stowed away. Well, that is very beautiful. Got all your gun ports here. It's very nice, isn't it? Then you've got them again corresponding underneath. Yeah, very nice. It's sturdy, just like Wingnut Wings. These sprues feel like the plastic is quite hard plastic. It's a bit like maybe Hasegawa. If anything, it's like Wingnut Wings. Nice plastic. Don't think you're gonna have any trouble putting this one together, Clive. The only issue is going to be that rigging. Listen, that's all I would have needed on the Harry. At least there's no rigging on that. That's one piece of pain I didn't have to go through. That would have been the last straw, I think. Anyway, more on that soon. More on that soon. So, this is the last of the big sprues, last of the grey sprues. And here we have the fuselage basically, and the tails and all the parts remaining. So you've got your big wing spar at the top, and then we've got the fuselage. So, they've been clever, haven't they? They're avoiding any horrible seam here by having this section here, which is all one piece, basically like a slide moulded section. It's not actually slide mounted because it's not got any opening hole, orifice or anything like that. It's the same effect, so you end up with a completely seamless top to your fuselage, which is beautiful. We've got a beautiful chin cowling here. It's nice, isn't it? Yes. Oh yes, very nice indeed. We've got a bit of the internal sides of the fuselage there. You've got your cowlings. Again, as I say, it doesn't matter about the thickness. All that really matters is the shape and the surface detail, which is very, very beautiful on this. Some very, very nice riveting as well. It's got all the fasteners detailed very well there. You've got over here your elevators. That's really rather nice. And then we've got tailplane. And then here we've got all the rivets. And then you can see there you've got the open door option for the cockpit, which is very rounded looking, isn't it? Is that right? That looks very rounded, the shape of it. Very strange. And then here you've got the top of the fuel tank. Which is very, very nice indeed. So there we have it. Last but not least, we have got the clear parts. And here we have those. So, we have our canopy. Oh, it's very, very nice, isn't it, that? Very, very nice indeed. And you got the armour plated windscreen there. And we've got the option obviously of having it open. So this is the open option, that's the closed option obviously. And then you've got your rear window there, which is where the radio is. And then you've got your various lights and wing lights, etc, etc. Now, I'm just trying to get my head around just the clarity of it. It's not the clearest. It's not the clearest. There's nothing wrong with it. Nothing wrong with it. It just seems a bit. I'm not sure. It just seems a bit. The plastic's just a little bit. There's some faint distortion. I don't know if I can get this in light so you can actually catch it. It's proving to be a bit of a challenge actually. There. Can we see? It's not serious. Just not perfect, not quite as good as the Tamiya, I don't think. But I wouldn't mark it down for that because it looks more than clear enough, and there's nice options, very, very nice indeed, to be quite honest with you. So there we have it. So what do I think? What do you think? More to the point. Well, first of all, I think it's a breath of fresh air. Whether I should mark it down for this lack of an engine, I don't know if that's fair or not really, because we knew that already, you know, it was not going to have an engine. It's quite expensive, at around about £100 or more if you're Clive or myself and others who did the pre-order direct to New Zealand. No fault of Kōtare, all the fault of the UK government that was. So, it's not a cheap kit, and it comes without an engine. So let's call it about £100. I think my advice to Kōtare would simply be just be a bit more mindful of things like your artwork. I'm not sure that its shelf appeal is the best it could have been. I think it's a little bit dull. I don't mean to sound that as an insult, but it's just not grabbing me in the way that the Airfix 24 scale or the Matchbox type artwork used to do. I think it's a little bit too, I don't know, it's almost like a pastiche. It's almost like Whistler has painted it or something. Do you know what I mean? Anyway, I don't want to be too negative about that because that's something that's not part of the kit, is it? It's just the box. But be mindful of your colours, be mindful of your artwork, jazz it up a bit. I think we need a little bit of that Wingnut Wings hot foiling on the box. That would be very nice. And there we are. The only other negative, obviously, it's got, like I said, the clear parts are not quite, it's a little bit underwhelming. And I think I thought this when I saw it the first time at Telford. But not bad, not bad. It wouldn't put me off the kit at all. Just not the best, perhaps not up to the Tamiya standard. And then, as I say, the engine, I love the instructions now. I've got to say that wins it a lot of plaudits. So where am I? So I think it's got to be 9.5 out of 10. Can't quite give it 10. It's not quite got the polish of the Wingnut Wings had, I don't feel, and they had engines, don't forget. But I think 9.5 out of 10 is a fair score. I think that's a brilliant score. Don't forget, it's a brand new manufacturer. It's a big, risky venture, which has probably put people's livelihoods on the line. I'm sure that people are taking lots of risks to bring this to market. And when they are doing it in such a professional way, in such a way that is bringing a bit of the joy of model making back, which has been so lacking, then yes, I think they deserve a lot of credit for this. And I kind of expected that in a way. I was a little bit underwhelmed when I saw it at Telford, but now I feel more positive about it than I did then, if I'm really honest. So I think 9.5 out of 10 isn't where I'm at. I think that's fair, and I say to Kōtare, just take on board the comments. You've done a brilliant job. Just try and dial out one of these two perhaps minor little improvements you could make, and you've got an absolute winner, 10 out of 10 Wingnut Wings style kit. I would certainly think in the future about including engines though, even if you have to charge them the £10–15 pro rata. I think that would still sell because people want it, you know. Jazz up your artwork, jazz up your box a little bit more, but the content is great and it's got beautiful plastic, it's got beautiful instructions, it's got lovely history. A joy, an experience again, an immersive experience, which is what we want. So, well done Kōtare, 9.5 out of 10. For a brand new factory with a brand new kit, that's a high rating. You've nothing to be disappointed about. That is a really good result, and you can build on that, I think. Just watch your pricing though, because yeah, it just feels £5 or £10 a bit more expensive than I would have expected, really. But I'd probably pay that. I don't think at £95 it's too expensive, but 100, okay. There you go. Hope you enjoyed the video. I know it's been a long one, but I want to go through this one quite slowly and have a really proper look so that you and me both could enjoy it. Thank you so much to Clive for loaning this to us. I'm now going to reset his bags and get it shooting off in the post to beat the Easter rush. Get it back to him because he wants to build it. So the sooner I can do that, the sooner he can get the glue out at Easter when he's got a few hours to spare. So thanks Clive. I really appreciate your help. Thank you all for watching. I hope you stay in good health. And as I mentioned, you know, our friend Jason, the Model Kit Stuff, spare him a thought. He's not feeling too good at the moment, so I'm sure we all wish you the best, Jason. You know, fingers crossed, and hope you're going to get well soon. And that's it from me. Hope you'll give me a thumbs up. Give me a 10 out of 10. 9.5 will do. And I hope to see you all soon. Watch out around Easter time because the Harrier rant is coming, and you're going to find that one quite entertaining. That's going to be a little bit more light-hearted. There'll be champagne because I deserve it, frankly, and I've had none for months and months. I've been, you know, basically put on champagne stoppage. because the wife said no, not till you finish the Harrier. Well, I have finished it, and I think you're going to enjoy seeing it on the video as well, because you'll see it in HD much better than any of you have seen it before, and I think you'll appreciate it. It does look nicer than you probably think it does. But no thanks to Kinetic, but we'll talk about that in detail. And in the meantime, we've got the Kinetic the Harrier build montage video, which I'm sure you're all probably already seen. Last night I think it was on the first time as I say this, going to press. So you can see that, you can see blow by blow the photographs. I think it's 12 minutes of it. It's a lot of photographs, and you can see some of the difficulties I went through, and we'll talk about that in some more detail around Easter time. Thank you very much for joining me. Please look after yourselves, take care, and until I see you again, thanks a lot, and bye for now.